Hello, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Let me know when we're good to go. Perfect. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the July meeting of the City of Lancaster Social Equity Commission. I would like to call this meeting to order. Assistant City Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Commissioners Carter. Here. Davis. Absent. Deloche.
Here.
Ramos.
Here.
Sanchez.
Here.
Chairman Kristen Pope.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, perfect. Could I ask for a motion to excuse our absent commissioner?
I motion.
I second.
Perfect, thank you so much. The motion to excuse an absent commissioner has been motioned by Commissioner Sanchez and seconded by Commissioner Deloche. All those in favor, please vote. Oh, Commissioner Ramos, I do apologize. Perfect, the motion passes with 5 yes votes. And Commissioner Deloche will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Sanchez will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, Commissioner Deloche, you may lead us in the invocation.
Thank you. If you would bow your heads. We thank you, God, for this opportunity to come to you in praise. We want to say thank you for the opportunities that you've given us. We want to say thank you for the entity and the platform that you've given us to come in fellowship and to make your agenda be heard. We ask that you give us a heart to receive. We ask that you give us a heart to give. And we hope that when we leave this chamber, all hearts and minds will be cleared and we will have a roadmap to our future. We want to thank you for the people who helped to put this together. And we ask that you continue to lead us and guide us as we do the work of the city. These are another blessing we ask in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Let's see. And the consent calendar. Are there any speakers for the consent calendar? Thank you. May I have a motion and a second for the approval of the consent calendar, please?
I make a motion that we approve the consent calendar as written.
I second that motion.
Commissioner Deloche makes the motion and Commissioner Sanchez seconds. You may now vote. And the motion passes with 5 yes votes. And now our first presentation should be from Commissioner Yori Carter on Juneteenth. Please go ahead and take it away.
All right. Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. I'm going to first start off by telling you a little bit about Juneteenth. Sure, a lot of people do know what it is, but some may not. Juneteenth commemorates June 19th, 1865, and that is the date that enslaved people in the last Confederate state learned of their freedom. That day in Galveston, Texas, followed by the passage of the 13th Amendment, officially marked the end of slavery in the United States. Following the emancipation of enslaved people, Black Americans reconnected with family through reunions and other types of gatherings. But these gatherings, which inspired the theme of this year's City of Lancaster Juneteenth celebration have continued to unite communities, foster fellowship, spread knowledge, and celebrate our heritage. So this year was the second annual Juneteenth for the city of Lancaster. It was held on June 18th, 2023, and the city of Lancaster, along with community partners, had a highly successful second annual Lancaster Juneteenth celebration, also known as the community's family reunion. This was a free event. It was held at the Lancaster City Park right here in Lancaster. It was a great event for those who attended, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about some of the activities. It was, again, a community family reunion style event. It brought together local businesses, organizations, and community members throughout the Antelope Valley. Some of the activities included the start or opening of the Juneteenth with a morning worship service that was hosted by the Living Faith Cathedral. There were educational talks and presentations on the history of Juneteenth. There was a wonderful pop-up skating rink that was managed by one of the groups that the City of Lancaster Social Equity Commission supports, called the Peace, Love, and Skate group. They managed the rink. It was free to all attendees, and they gave out free skates. There were prizes. There were games for the children, and there were also adult skaters. Skate rental was free, and they had about 500 people that actually got to participate and skate for free at that pop-up. We had a main stage that had over 10 local performers, and we had one really big main guest. Grammy Award winner Molly Music was one of our entertainers for the Juneteenth. In addition, this event really brought, the culture of Louisiana, with the first ever held in the city of Lancaster Second Line Parade. That included the brass band, the throwing out of the beads, and the dancers with the umbrellas parading and dancing through the crowd. So it was really wonderful, really a sight to see. And this year, our attendance was almost double. We had about over 4,000 citizens from this community, from the Antelope Valley, that attended. And last year, I think there were about 2,500 attendees. We had over 100 vendors. About 22 of those vendors were food vendors, so there was a lot of good food, a lot of good things to buy and so forth, and really another opportunity for local and minority-owned businesses to sell their wares and drum up business and show who they are in our community. Something that we did as the Social Equity Commission is we did a survey, which is part of what we want to do as the commission, is to find out what the community wants from a Social Equity Commission. So we were able to really get some feedback from the members of the community. We'll keep doing that survey, but this Juneteenth was just another event where we were able to get some information from the members of our city and really see what we can do as a Social Equity Commission to improve equity for all. But the Juneteenth event was quite wonderful. If you didn't get to attend this year, think about attending next year. It's a great event. It's a family reunion, and when we say family, we mean the entire Lancaster city. So it's something for everybody at that event. And it was wonderful. And I just want to give a big thanks to all of the community members that participated in making it successful. All the social equity commissioners were in attendance at the event. And also just really want to thank, and he's not here tonight, Mr. Ronald Chatters. He's one of the main managers of that event. And again, he, with the community crew and everybody that participated, just did a wonderful job, and we had a highly successful Juneteenth this year. So thank you to everybody that attended. Thank you to everybody who wanted to attend, and I'm going to thank everybody in advance who will participate and attend next year.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
I recognize the Deputy Mayor.
I also want to thank the commission and the community and Mr. Chatters for your work in this year's second annual City of Lancaster Juneteenth celebration. Just for a little bit of background, the City of Lancaster did its first annual Juneteenth celebration last year, and it was the first Juneteenth celebration in our city since it was made a federal holiday. And so I do want to, on behalf of the City Council and the Mayor, thank the Commission for not only being a part this year, but for giving us the opportunity as a city and being innovative with it to celebrate Juneteenth as an entire community. It's so important to continue to tell the story of Juneteenth and to keep that spirit that none of us are free until all of us are free. And I thank you. And I also would like to thank Mr. Chatters, too. Mr. Chatters was one of our staffers during the first annual, and he was there with us every step of the way. And I thank him for coming back this year and helping us double that event. But again, I'm looking forward to next year, and I hope we have a little Mardi Gras style too, seeing as my family's from Louisiana. So,
I appreciate that, Deputy Mayor Cannon. Anyone from the dais have any questions, comments, concerns? Commissioner Deloche.
Thank you, Chairman. So I wanted to continue with what what Commissioner Carter was saying. We did do a survey, and in that survey, we polled people. So I want to go back and again thank the City Council, city managers, and all the staffers who helped us put this event together. We were able to secure some nice gifts for people who participated in the survey, and from what I heard, that we've given those out. So I just wanted to share a little bit of the data that we did receive from the survey. So one of the first things that we learned was that most people cannot define social equity, which is a shame, but that's still data. So the good news is people may not know what we do, but that's an opportunity for us to showcase it and make ourselves known in the next year. Another thing that we learned in our survey is that less than half the residents polled agree that Lancaster is equitable. So even though they may not be able to define it, they still feel like Lancaster is not equitable. We also learned that 50% of the people polled feel heard by their local government. So a good statistic. Another statistic that we learned is that 75% of the residents that were polled feel that local officials engage sufficiently. So good data. The next thing that we learned was that that public safety is the most important thing on everyone's mind. So public safety outranked all the other things, and some of the things that we asked about was, was it the, equity, housing, medical, but public safety was at the top. And the last thing that we learned is that 45% of the residents that we surveyed are satisfied with law enforcement. So again, we still have a ways to go here. So that being said, because our sample size was so small, we would like to, the subcommittee would like to ask if we can redo the survey and clean up some of the language. And when I say clean up the language, there were questions in the survey that said neutral. And when a person puts neutral in the survey, which was a lot of people, it kept us from being able to get data either way. So what we want to do is to clean up the questions to make sure that a person can either choose yes or can choose no, and then use the city's information and platforms to really get this survey out there so that we can get a wider swath to find out what the city really feels. So is that okay that we redo this survey? So the subcommittee, so what I'm asking for is, can the subcommittee meet one more time to clean this survey up so that we can represent it with the QR code, so that now that we can put it on the city's platforms and really get a better feel for how everyone feels since our sample size was so small.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner Deloche. I recognize Deputy Mayor Cannon.
Yes, thank you for those statistics. Those are very important. Whenever the subcommittee decides to meet, I would like to meet with you all as well, just to get some input about where you guys are looking to go to expand on the sample size, and to get more productivity from the survey. So I would love to meet you guys and come up with a plan and be a resource to make sure that as many members of the community as possible can participate in that survey.
Perfect, thank you. Any
We
other
will invite you.
commissioners?
Yeah, I wanted to, just to add in what Dr. Deloche said, and also Sean, I wanted to recommend that we do put together a planning session where we can really like talk things through and look at the survey, break it apart, discuss other things that, you know, we want to bring to the floor or table. So I'd like to recommend a planning session if that's.
Yes, and the planning session is separate from the subcommittee. So it sounds like you want to conflate them, but the subcommittee we already had on the books, correct? So the planning session would be to help the commission, you know, talk about some other things.
Just point of clarification, the planning meetings are the meetings that we have done in the past that have always been compliant with the Brown Act, and we have planned for all of the other commission business. In terms of the subcommittee meeting, the subcommittee was in preparation for the item that Commissioner Deloche was just mentioning. Is that ringing a bell so far?
I mean, it rings a bell, but I do think that for me, there are some other topics that we need to plan and talk about as well. And we can do it separately, but to me, you know, pulling together everybody at one time, that can be one of the items on our agenda for planning.
Absolutely, and I thank you for your feedback. Perfect, thank you so much for your feedback.
You're welcome.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Ramos?
Thank you. We all attended the Juneteenth celebration. I just wanted to add to what has been said. It was very, had great energy. It was a really, really nice event. Want to thank Ron Chatters as well, along with everyone else. There were a lot of people that did a lot of work to put this together. It was an honor and a privilege to be there. I also wanted to thank Kiona, I think her last name is Green, from the city manager's office. She came up to me and assisted with getting maybe half of the surveys that we had filled out. She was amazing. I just wanted to, along with all the other superstars that day, just wanted to acknowledge that she also came in and supported us in our efforts to try and learn more about what the city wants in terms of equity, and I just wanted to make that comment.
Perfect, thank you so much. Any other commissioners? Okay. I appreciate the commentary and the presentation that we just heard from Commissioner Carter, because it talks about something that's really important. One of our priorities is making sure that when the city of Lancaster has holidays and when there are holidays on the calendar year, that the city of Lancaster is truly recognizing the diversity of our city, of our region, and holding events that really focus in on that population. And so I thank you, Commissioner Carter, for your presentation. I thank all of our department heads, all of our staffers, all of our volunteers that made the entire Juneteenth event possible. I mean, this is quite literally what happens when people all across our city pool their networks together. It's been said that everybody in the AV knows everyone, and so I think the family reunion concept proved that very, very well. So thank you all very, very much. I would now like to move on to our second presentation, which is Racine and Raquel with the OIG report. And do you have an ETA on the time of your presentation, the length of your presentation?
As fast as I can go.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
No, I'm not
so
for sure.
much.
About 20 minutes.
Okay.
Shouldn't be no longer than that. Hello, commissioners, chairman,
Thank you.
and you guys. Okay.
Hello. Just want to let you know, OIG, for those that don't know or anybody who's listening, that's the Los Angeles Office of Inspector General. So we will be discussing a report they released in April of this year, and it has to do with data in regards to school resource deputies, contact with high school students. So the district we're talking about is the Antelope Valley Union High School District.
And that also includes the high schools in Palmdale and Lancaster. Okay, I think we're ready. Oh, do we have a slide button thingy? Oh, that's for us. Right. Okay, on June 28th, 2022, in the Improvement School Climate and Safety Board of Supervisors motion, the board directed the Inspector General to consultation with the Sheriff, County Council, and other relevant county departments to analyze school resource deputies, contacts with students in the school districts, contracting with the counties for SRDs, that's School Resource Deputy Services, to determine if racial disparities existed in students' contacts, arrests, suspensions, expulsions, similar to what was discussed in the Inspector General's report, allegations of racial disparities in contact with high school youth by the Sheriff Department's Lancaster Station. Racial Disparities Report.
To accomplish the objectives set forth in the board's motion, the Office of Inspector General analyzed two sets of data. So the first one was school resource deputy student contact data from the Sheriff Department's computer-aided dispatch CAD system. So meaning the data that we're discussing is actually the Sheriff Department's own data. And then also discipline and demographic data from the California Department of Education for all schools in school districts under contract with the Sheriff's Department for school resource deputy services. So this is data that the high school district actually submits to the California Department of Education. So it's the district's own data.
For the purpose of comparison, the schools reviewed in this report were separated into two groups. The first group consists of 76 schools from 15 school districts, staffed by 33 SRDs from 11 patrol stations, and are referred to as the schools outside of Lancaster's. And the second group consists of 40 schools in 3 school districts staffed by 18 SRDs from Lancaster Station and are referred to as the Lancaster schools.
So during the 2019-2020 school year, the Sheriff's Department provided school resource deputy services to 116 schools in 18 school districts with deputies from 12 patrol stations. The schools consisted of elementary, middle, high schools, and a continuation school, and 1 adult school. Office of Inspector General staff reviewed 15,640 CAD system entries by the Sheriff's Department staff for the 2019-2020 school year, and filtered this data to identify 812 school contacts with students by school resource deputies.
SRDs contacted children as young as the ages 5 and 7 years of age. There were 21 contacts with elementary school children ages 5 through 11, 166 contacts of middle school age students ages 11 through 14, and 625 contacts of high school age students between the ages of 13 through 19. There were only 2 instances out of the documented 812 school contacts in which SRDs indicated they referred a student to a diversion program. With that being said, out of all those kids, 812, those were Black kids, and the Sheriff Department has the authority to refer them to a diversion program, meaning an alternative to being arrested, getting a record. And with that being in the hands of the Sheriff Department, we see that they only had 2 incidences out of 812 kids that they referred to a diversion program.
So in the schools outside of Lancaster, school resource deputies contacted Black and Hispanic students more than any other racial group. Moreover, Black and Hispanic students were contacted at a rate disproportionately higher in comparison to their respective percentage of school enrollment. In the Lancaster schools, only Black students were contacted at a rate disproportionately higher in comparison to their percentage of school enrollment. The degree of disproportionality of Black student contacts was much higher in the Lancaster schools than what was observed in the schools outside of Lancaster. So for those of you who may not know this, when we're talking about disproportionality, we are comparing a student enrollment, like in the school, compared to the discipline data or the contact with the school resource officer. So what you would like to see, if there is equitable treatment, then school enrollment percentage should match whatever that you're comparing, whether it's contact with police or whether it is discipline data, like expulsions or suspensions. So, for instance, in our high school district, black students make up 25% of special education students. So they should make up 25% of school suspensions. But in actuality, they account for more than half of suspensions of special education students.
So up on your screen is a chart to show you exactly what she was explaining. The blue is the contacts, the green is the enrollment. Hispanics had 70% enrollment and 74.6% in contact. Black kids as enrollment are at a 8.5%, and they had 18.3% contact with the deputies. And as you can see, there's other demographics that shows as well. This is the suspension compared to the school's demographics. Black kids enrolled 23.1%. Their suspension rate, 53.8. Hispanic, their enrollment percentage, 60.2%. Their suspension, 35.2%. The white kids, their enrollment, 10.3%. Their suspensions, a 4.8. So this is basically what we're describing as in the problem within our school system. These kids are not being disciplined fairly, and the black kids are on the high rise, and these numbers are only going up compared to the report from a couple years prior to this.
So in the 5 school districts with the highest number of school resource deputy student contacts, black students were disproportionately contacted in 4 of the 5 school districts. So here's some numbers for you. So you can see Antelope Valley Union High School, that's our high school district. So that encompasses every high school that is in the Antelope Valley. So that's Palmdale, Lancaster, the unincorporated areas of Little Rock and Lake LA. So if you look there, the race would be blacks or our black students. They account for 60.4% of contact with school deputies, yet only account for 17.8% of actual student enrollment. And then in our Lancaster, so this is elementary, so K through 8th, black students account for 59.4% of contact with a deputy, and yet account for 30.3% of actual enrollment, right? So that's elementary age school. So when we talk about contact, we're not talking about the deputy giving a high five or stickers, okay? So this is like contact where the student, is given a warning or a citation, and then when we go into middle schools, we're having middle school age children actually being cited and arrested for benign student behavior.
In the schools outside of Lancaster's, blacks and Hispanic students were subject to arrest and citations at a disproportionately higher rate in comparison to their respective percentage of enrollment. In the Lancaster schools, only black students were disproportionately arrested and cited. The level of disproportionality is arrests and citations of black students in Lancaster schools was 3.5 times greater than the disparities observed in the schools outside of Lancaster's. In one of the school districts serviced by Lancaster Station's SRDs, black students were arrested more than 86% of the time they were contacted by an SRD.
So here's some data for you. A school district outside of Lancaster, they're giving you race, and then so contact, and then if it's an arrest or a citation. So that's what this is here. So if you look, black students outside Lancaster were arrested and cited 93.5% of the time when they were contacted by a school resource deputy.
The arrest and citation percentages for the school districts Lancaster school districts, there were 279 contacts, 214 arrests, 16 citations, and 230 total arrests and citations, giving us a percentage of 82.4. The contacts are high of 279, and you can see compared to the arrests that was not far behind. So again, it's showing that the contacts they're having with the black kids are definitely being arrested, citation, which introduces them to the criminal justice system, which further is involved DCFS, other kids in the home being disturbed, and again, not being referred to diversion programs.
So the issue of disproportionate disproportionate arrest is even more pronounced in the Antelope Valley Union High School District, one of the 3 school districts that's serviced by school resource deputies from the Lancaster station. The Antelope Valley Union High School District alone accounted for 93.9%, or 294 of 313 of all arrests. So listen to that, arrests made by school resource deputies in the Lancaster schools. Black students were arrested 86.5% of the time during contacts with school resource deputies in the Antelope Valley Union High School District. So this is the school to prison pipeline that we discuss, that once a student has contact and is arrested or cited by the sheriffs, they enter into the juvenile justice system. A young person that goes through the juvenile justice system is more likely as an adult to enter than the criminal justice system.
The CAD system inaccuracies. Significant inaccuracies were found in the Sheriff's Department CAD data system entries with respect to the reason for the student's contact deputies, quote, observation or call for service by school staff. What we interpret that to be is, instead of the school handling the discipline that might be needed for a kid, the first thing they do is call the deputies. So once the deputy come, we've heard many times, when they come, somebody's getting arrested. Somebody's getting a citation. We've heard many deputies say that. The Office of Inspector General suspects that the cause of this discrepancies between observations and the call for service is that SRDs did not properly reclassify some of the remaining observation entries to call of service. To verify this theory, Officers of Inspector General staff reviewed the narrative section of the CAD system entries to determine if any of the remaining observation entries were actually the result of call for service by school staff.
A review of the narrative sections identified at least an additional 311, or 38.3%, of the 812 total student contacts should have been reclassified as calls for service. In the schools outside of Lancaster, at least 77, or 30.6%, of the remaining 252 observation entries should have been reclassified as calls for service. So observation is like when the sheriff's deputy is looking and saying, oh, something's going on. Call for service is when staff is calling police on the students. In the Lancaster schools, at least 234, or 58.1%, of the remaining 403 observation entries should have been reclassified as calls for service. So we can see a trend here, right? School district, instead of doing their job and dealing with the student, is their knee-jerk reaction is to call law enforcement. So the Office of Inspector General did have some recommendations on, like, how do we combat this, or how do we change this disproportionality. So the Sheriff's Department should take steps to ensure that school resource deputies properly memorialize the reason for their contact with students. Proper memorialization of the reason will improve the accuracy of the contact data in the CAD system, and will also help the Sheriff's Department track whether school resource deputy contacts were initiated by the school administrators or by the SRDs for themselves. A little bit further, when they put the reason, it's just very general. So for instance, a student can be cited or arrested for basically like disturbing like the school day or disturbing the peace, and then we don't know what that is. Was the kid just, making jokes in class, or, was the kid going around threatening other students? So that kind of gray area, and then it's subjective led up to these disparities that we see, because we know that when school officials are looking at a white student, that type of behavior is childish behavior, youthful indiscretion. When it is a black student, it is criminal behavior.
Discipline. Black students were disproportionately suspended, and their suspension rates in SRD contact schools exceeded statewide averages. In both the schools outside of Lancaster and the Lancaster schools, black students were expelled at a disproportionately higher rate than their percentages of school enrollment.
Black students were suspended and expelled at higher rates than their percentage of school enrollment. However, the degree of disproportionality observed in the Lancaster schools was greater than what was observed in schools outside of Lancaster. In schools outside of Lancaster, the 8.4 suspension rate for black students was 3 times greater than the second highest suspension rate of 2.6 for Hispanic students. In the Lancaster schools, the 12.5% suspension rate for Black students was 4 times greater than the second highest suspension rate of 3.2% for its Hispanic students. So suspensions compared to student demographics or student enrollment, you look again, green shows the percentage of enrollment that particular student population is, and then the blue is the suspension. So Black students account for 8.5% of school enrollment, but account for 25.1% of suspensions. So this was schools outside of Lancaster. Hispanic students in schools outside of Lancaster account for 70% of total student enrollment, and then yet account for 63.6% of student enrollment, and then we have other races listed there as well. But the disproportionality is greatest amongst our Black students. So once again, this is schools outside of Lancaster, but still within Los Angeles County.
These are the suspension rates for our demographics in Lancaster schools. Again, the enrollment for Black kids is 23.1. The suspensions are 53.8. Hispanics, 35.9% suspensions compared to their 60.2% of enrollment. Whites enrollment, 10.3%, and their suspension rate is at a 4.8.
So Black students overall exhibited the highest level of disproportionality in suspensions compared to their percentage of student enrollment. So in schools outside of Lancaster, Black students had a 16.5% rate of disproportionality, and then in Lancaster schools, it was 30.7%.
The suspension, oops, let me get to the next slide. Okay. The suspension rates of Black students in SRD contact schools exceeded statewide averages. In the schools outside of Lancaster, the suspension rate of Black and Hispanic students exceeded statewide averages. The suspension rate of Black students exceeded the statewide average by 1.6%, followed by Hispanic students at 0.1%. The suspension rate of white students at 1.9%, and Asian students at 0.5% was under the statewide average for their respective group. And then
there's some more data, so just what Racine was sharing with you. Now we're going to move on to expulsion. So due to the severity of punishment, expulsions are much less common than suspensions and are often used as a last resort. School administrators recommend expulsions to the school district's governing board, which will then decide whether to expel a student or not. So in the state of California, there is only specific behavior that a student can be expelled for, since the state understands like that's a drastic step. But we know here in our high school district, their policies and procedures allow the school to expel a student for any violation of ed code. So basically, the high school district's policies and practices are breaking laws. The Office of the Inspector General analyzed expulsion data for the schools outside of the Lancaster and Lancaster schools. So once again, this is data that the school itself reports to the state of California, and found that Black students were expelled at disproportionately higher rates than their percentage of school enrollment. So that's giving you the data on that. You all can take a look.
School contracts. The Office of Inspector General staff conducted a review of the contracts with the schools districts entered into with the county for SRD services. The contracts use general boilerplate language. What? Boilerplate language to describe the services provided by SRDs. The current contracts the Sheriff Department have with the schools provided no specific guidance as to the type of situations for which students should be referred to SRDs, what type of services SRD must provide when contacted, or how SRD should interact with the school's administration.
And then just so you know, there's no state or federal guidelines that govern behavior of school resource deputies. So it's really, if the district is concerned, they themselves can insert that language into a contract or a memorandum of understanding. The onus really actually isn't on the Sheriff's Department. They are just agreeing to provide law enforcement services for whoever they're contracting with. So another recommendation from the OIG is to help mitigate the negative effects of potential school-based bias in school resource deputy referrals. The Office of Inspector General recommends that the Sheriff Department school resource deputy contract should include the following: a clear definition of the roles and responsibilities of the school resource deputy, the school district, and the school site, including a detailed plan outlining a process for a student's referral to school resource deputies. To the extent which information will be shared between the school district and the Sheriff's Department, consistent with state and federal laws. Requirements for qualifications and training of school resource deputies, a system of school resource deputy performance monitoring that is available to the public.
Recommendations. In order to facilitate the preparation of these reports, the Sheriff Department should publish CAD system statistics on all SRD contacts with students, including the data points listed in the board's June 8, 2021's motion entitled Strengthening Oversight of School Law Enforcement Services. The Sheriff Department should also track and publish data on how many SRD contacts result in use of force on students and the level of force used.
And their final recommendation is that the Los Angeles County should consider support for the passage of California Assembly Bill 1299, requiring school resource officers to report directly to the principal of the school while on the school campus, with certain exceptions. The bill also requires the creation of policies and procedures relating to the use of school resource officers or officers acting in this capacity, and must include the following: a prohibition on the use of handcuffs on a school campus unless necessary to address a violent situation, a prohibition of the issuance of a vehicle citation to a current pupil, any person, including a pupil, operating a vehicle on a school campus, a prohibition of the use of pepper spray on school campus, and a prohibition on the use of police officer, school resource officer, or any other law enforcement official acting as a school resource officer for purposes of correcting pupil behavior.
And that is the end of our presentations. Do any of the chairmen or commissioners have any questions?
Thank you so much for your presentation. That being said, do any of our commissioners have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I do want to say thank you for that. Being a high school administrator, that the statistics are alarming, and I'm hoping that the recommendations and these changes do get put into action.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, the school already knows their own data, or they should. So we do concur, and I hope you're all shocked, and I hope you are able to get the word out and, hold the school district and the Sheriff's Department accountable for behavior that happens on our campuses.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah. You trying to get
Perfect, thank you so much. And are we all good for public business from the floor and speaker cards? Okay, perfect. Perfect, thank you so much. Okay, perfect. So the first speaker card, Juanette Colors.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
I'm glad
afternoon.
to be here to talk about the OIG report. My name is Juanette Colors. I'm one of the founders of Cancel the Contract. I also am a board of trustee for the Keppel School District, serving as president on my 3rd year. And why I'm here today is to address you in regards to this report. And as the Equity Commission, I know that you guys are very concerned with equity in our community. And it's important to us all as advocates for our children that they succeed. And for Black children, I'm an advocate for Black children. I'm a black child. I have Black children, and they are adults. But I'm concerned with our children and what's happening in the schools. This is data, like Raquel shared, that actually comes from the school district. And I'm sure it's not 100% accurate because some of their data has been suppressed. I want you to know that as counsel of the contract, we were asked by the school teachers and administrators from the Black Equity Committee to remove SROs from schools. We as a coalition and community want to remove SROs from schools, but we also want to call out when law enforcement does police brutality, like some of the things we've seen in the last 2 weeks in our community. And as an equity group, I would request and ask you guys to also get on board in reference to showing your concern for our students. You know, it's like closed mouths don't get helped, you know? So it's like not just us as mothers and advocates in community that are doing this. You as an equity commission should be alarmed, afraid, and speak out and talk to the school board. We had a meeting with the brand new school board meetings when they were sworn in, and the very first thing that came out of Corona's mouth was, I want you to know that I am here for the sheriff. And I said, you should be here for the students. So we know that Antelope Valley loves police, but they should start loving their students and their children and look for them to have success. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next comment card, Lindy Williams.
I wasn't on this one, sorry.
Okay. Those are the only 2 speaker cards. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for your presentation. And are we now good to move on to public business from the floor?
This is a time to address the Social Equity Commission on non-agendized matters. Speaker cards can be found on the back table of the council chambers. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each unless a different time limit is announced. State law prohibits the commission from taking action on items not listed on the agenda. Thank you.
Apologies. For the non-agendized item, Lindy.
Good afternoon, all. How are you?
Good afternoon.
Okay, Lenny Williams. I'm part of Cancel the Contract, and I wanted to address something that was sent to us by one of the newscasters. It was posted social media. It's about a deputy who works at the Lancaster station. He put it on some kind of social media thing, and he's talking about the entire area that they patrol is roughly over 600 square miles. He talks about there's only 150 deputies to take care of that. They work 3 shifts, 7 days a week, every day, so on and so forth. They get 300 to 500 calls a day, and each shift roughly runs short about 10 to 15 people. And most of those people, he says, are working overtime. Now, I do feel for the deputies. However, what this deputy is talking about, knowing that it's the busiest station in LA County, he's talking about that he's bothered and says that the media has sensationalized a number of negative and violent encounters in recent years that suggest racial overtones. Okay, we're in a settlement agreement. That's not a suggestion. The Department of Justice, the Sheriff's Department, the cities of Lancaster and Palmdale both agreed that the Sheriff's Department has targeted intentionally black people in the AB. So I hope this deputy is watching, because if he doesn't know that, shame on him. And he probably doesn't, because the ex-captain kept that kind of real quiet-like. Now, with that being said, whoever this deputy was talks about there was an injunction and zero bail and they don't like Garscon. Those are people that we voted for. All of LA County got to vote. We voted for those people, right, wrong, or indifferent. Now, what he's saying is he's bothered that zero bail policies are allowing nonviolent, misdemeanor, and felonies, persons who are convicted of those or charged with that, to get out without bond. Speaker card. The only reason that that has happened is because people were losing their homes, their children were being taken. Okay, so anybody can make a mistake and end up incarcerated, even if they're held for 24 hours, and they can lose their home, their job, or their children. What do you think that turns people into? You take away someone's right or way to earn a living, and you're going to get surprised.
Thank you for your comment.
I have a card, my card.
It was 3 minutes.
Where's the other 3 minutes? What's that? That was the second one? Really? Okay, short version, because I appreciate you guys. Short version, we're in a settlement agreement. So deputies, if you guys don't know that, read about it, please. And I asked before, have you guys read it yet? The 2016 one's coming out.
Thank you for your comment.
And read it.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Giovanni, appreciate you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And now on to commissioner comments. First and foremost, Commissioner Carter, do you have any commentary? Any comments, any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
I apologize. I recognize Deputy Mayor Cannon.
Thank you. I just I wanted to thank the community for engaging with the commission today, and I hope that it is sustained. I want to remind everyone that, and especially remind yourself, Mr. Chairman, that the Social Equity Commission is an advisory body. I also want to reiterate that the City of Lancaster has enacted public safety policies in the form of a hybrid law enforcement model. And under the leadership of our public safety director, the city has made a great outreach effort. And I know that to get the community buy-in and input on that hybrid law enforcement model. I just wanted to go back really quick to a point from the data that Commissioner Deloche outlined for us from that survey, where you said that it was most people couldn't define social equity or didn't know what it was. The door that is open for the community when it comes to things like public safety and other things is open, and it remains open, and it will be open now and it will be open forever. The City Council created this commission to be a vehicle for community involvement in civic life when it comes to any policy that affects social equity of our citizens. So I appreciate that the community came. I appreciate the commission for being available to the community. I know that the City Council appreciates it, and we look forward to community involvement on not just these issues, but all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cannon. Commissioner Carter?
I'll just save my comments. I'll do that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sanchez?
I just want to thank you guys for your presentation and providing this data for us, and we are taking it. We took our notes, and we're going to look into it.
Commissioner Ramos?
I echo what the Commissioner just stated. The information that you just provided is very important information. We appreciate you sharing, and just want to thank you for that.
Commissioner Deloche?
Again, I want to reiterate a thank you and to say that we are taking notes and looking forward to a platform to where we can compare and move these things along to the proper authorities above us. So again, thank you guys for your time and your bravery to share.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Commissioner Deloche. So just extremely briefly, first things first, I know that we haven't talked about it much in this chamber today, but just friendly reminder that California and the Antelope Valley in particular, they are under heat advisory watch. That being said, there are cooling centers that are open. And you can find all of that information on the City of Lancaster social media page. I say that because many times, as Californians and as folks living in the desert, we don't take heat very seriously. And this is a heat wave, and the heat is serious. So I'd just like to remind everyone that that information is available in case anyone needs it. In addition to that, we obviously heard a presentation today that echoes very important sentiments about our student safety in school. We take that report and we take that information very seriously, so thank you for your presentation, and we'll talk. That being said, if there is no other question or comment from any of the commissioners, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I motion to adjourn.
May I have a second?
I second.
Perfect, thank you so much. And that now means that the City of Lancaster Social Equity Commission meeting has concluded. Our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, August 16th, 2023 at